If you're a beginner with the kettlebell swing, then you want to watch this video because I'm going to cover a lot of common mistakes that beginners make and want to avoid. I'm also going to talk about, am I swinging too heavy or swinging too light? So a lot of times when people post, how's my swing? You'll get a lot of feedback saying, swing heavier. Now this isn't incorrect because you need a weight that is correct for your swing. So if your weight is too light, you need to go heavier. But most of the time, the people are already using a weight that is too heavy. Now here are some things that will tell you whether it's too heavy. It will pull them forward. So as they're swinging up, it will pull them forward and off balance. That is one thing that will tell you that the weight is too heavy. Another thing is, as it comes down, it really pulls them back, and you see their toes lift off the ground, or they're really going to resist with counterbalance. So if that weight is heavy and it swings back, they want to counterbalance forward, and then they'll fall forward. So if you're unbalanced a lot, then it could have to do with the weight being too heavy. So picking the right weight, I'll get to that. Now, another thing that you need to look at is what you're wearing. If you're wearing squishy running shoes, take them off. The best thing is flat shoes or no shoes at all. Now, I've written an article in where I explain all this. I don't want to make this video too long, but trust me, you want to look into barefoot training, and don't worry about dropping anything on your feet. It hasn't happened, and it will most likely not happen either. Even if it does, if you have running shoes, do you think there's a difference between a little layer of protection or nothing? It doesn't matter. So take those shoes off or get minimalistic shoes. Then the next thing, am I going too heavy or am I going too light? If you are raising the weight with your shoulders, then most likely it is too light. So too light looks like this. Now you can tell that there's not enough power from the legs because the weight is drooping. You always want that weight to be an extension of your arms. So it looks like this, right there. And at the back as well, an extension of your arm. So that is a requirement. Another requirement is always standing up straight. Chest out, scapula activated and set. So what that is you're activating your lats, you're pulling your scapula down and together. So that pushes your chest out. I'll take my shirt off later, just so you can see what that looks like around the scapula and the chest, how the chest comes out. I'll get back to that. So, the right weight is a weight that you move with. So, you're in sync with it. A heavy weight is a weight that moves you, okay? A lightweight, a too lightweight, is a weight that you move, okay? So there is a difference between those three. Now, another question is always, how do I know when I can go up in my weight? It depends on what you're doing as well, because there are different goals for the swing. So you have swings for power, they're heavy and they're short. You have swings for endurance, both muscular and cardiovascular. So they're higher reps and the weight is lower. For power, the weight is higher and the reps are lower. The rest is longer. So it does matter. Now you have 1 RM, which basically means 1 rep max. You can go by that. So what is the heaviest weight that you can use for 1 rep? Perfect form. But you can't do no more. That's your 1 RM. But if you're a beginner, you don't want to focus on that. You don't want to focus on your 1 RM and going that heavy. You want to stay more between the 8 and 10 RM, but definitely not at the higher end. So the higher you go with those reps, the lighter your weight. But you don't want to go too light, because I've explained already, there's no resistance. And that will affect your form as well. So that's cheating. It allows you to cheat. If a weight is too light, it allows you to cheat. So this is cheating. This is racing with the shoulders. And if the weight is too heavy, you can still do that. And you're going to probably compensate with your back Well, of course you can't do as many reps when you're picking a heavier weight, but you can still cheat. Now it's about finding the balance in between, the right weight that provides resistance and makes sure that all the movement comes from the legs. So a kettlebell swing is powered by the legs, not by the shoulders, not the upper body. The arms are just like a rope. That's all it is. It's a pull out, so you're pulling the weight out and then directing it forward. Now, there are different movements with a swing as well. A swing is the exercise. Then underneath, you have different variations. You got a hardstyle swing. You got even a RKC hardstyle, strong first hardstyle. With RKC, it's a hip hinge and the ankles do not move. With strong first, they call it an athletic hip hinge and the ankles do move. It's really a squat movement, but they call it an athletic hip hinge. My point is, there's the swing, the family, and then there is different variations. You need to know which one you're doing or want to do, especially if you're posting online. If you're just saying, how's my swing? Then you're going to get different feedback from people who do this variation or this variation. But if you say, how is my hardstyle strong first swing? You're being very specific. Now, there's also just a hip hinge swing, which isn't the same as a hardstyle swing, because a hardstyle swing is always about maximum power, developing maximum power. So heavy, short reps, but you can still make the same movement, a hip hinge, which is this. But you can focus on endurance, 20, 40, 60 unbroken reps. It's not about power anymore, but you're still making the same movement. So it's a different variation. Now, those are just a couple of variations, but I can tell you there's a whole world of variations. This is why I always insist on correct exercise naming. So it's very hard for a beginner to understand what they're doing or what they want to do. And then it's very hard to get feedback from different people and figuring out what is the correct feedback. So it's great to get free feedback from forums, but there has to be an understanding from both sides if you want the right feedback. Okay, now let's go back to the hip hinge swing, which is basically knees and hips, no ankles. So your shins have to remain vertical. So those are requirements. If you can't meet those requirements, then don't go heavier with your weight. If you can't meet those requirements, then maybe your weight is too heavy. Always practice body weight first. So there are several things that happen. You got your setup and you got your first rep, which is from that, which is the height back, and then you got your first swing. The first thing you want to do is get the height back correct. So set that up. You don't want to be too far, and you don't want to be too close. When you're too close, you have to push it in and you can't pull it in. When you're too far, you're overextending and you're bending too low. So find the right distance. Then your first thing, what you want to do is grab the weight, then you pull back and insert. So what I do is I pull back, then I feel it touching, and then I insert slightly. You don't have to do that as long as you avoid bobbing at the back. Bobbing at the back is this. If you couldn't see that, basically it's this within your palms. So that kettlebell handle is creating friction because there's a short bob, abrupt movement of the bell. This is the bell, this is the horn, corner, handle, window, and the base. So if that is moving, that handle at the back here, it's like it almost wants to hit you in your buttocks. It's only because your arms are abruptly stopped. Then the weight wants to keep going, and then you get that. So that's one thing you want to work on avoiding. And that's great doing that with the height back. So you go here, activate your lats, sit back, pull back, and back down. Work on that first. Do 1 rep, reset, go again. If you don't have that right, then most of everything else that you do is going to be incorrect. So spend time on that. I'll do a few more. So you start with just doing one at a time, reset, think about it, and then even look at your footage if you can. Always film side on. The most common mistake here is this. Pulling too far back and letting that kettlebell hit. Or go here and then you go out there and then back down. Those are some common mistakes there. And the setup I've already covered. Now once you have that right, you do 2 of the hike back and then you follow up with just standing tall once. And then letting it come back through the legs and then back down. Because my biggest common mistake is following the kettlebell. So you get the top of your swing, then it falls back down into the back swing. It drops. What most people do is hinge and follow it. You're bringing that weight further away from your center of mass. Again, check out that article where I describe all this in more detail. What that does is put the load on your lower back. You also, especially if you swing too heavy, it really pulls you down low, right here. That's a Jillian Michael swing. Okay. Let's have a look. So 2 hike backs and 1 standing up tall and waiting, hinge, insert, back to dead. So you park it back. Here we go. That's all you do to start with. The thing is, when you first get started, most people just want to keep going at it. It doesn't make sense to keep going, especially if you don't have it correct, your form and your technique. So again, like I said in the beginning, a great way to start as well is just body weight. Here, activate your lats, activate your scapula. Imagine a weight here. I'm looking ahead. I'm just telling myself, wait. Then I feel my triceps connect my ribs or whatever connects. You just know. And then you hinge. Then I insert. That insert also pushes your hips back. You want to go back and deep into that hinge because it's called a hip hinge swing. Now, let's talk about that. A hip hinge really is hinging at the hips. That's a true hip hinge. Now we've added the knees to it, and now we call that the conventional hip hinge. Because a true hip hinge is a stiff-legged hip hinge, which is this. Now you can swing with that as well, but it's very advanced. Okay, so don't do that. Now it could also be a common mistake where people just aren't bending their hips and pushing back because they're very tight in the hamstrings, and I don't want to feel that stretch that they're getting here on the hamstrings, okay? So again, going back, this is where you work with body weight. Right here, really push back those hips, keep those shins vertical, ankles not moving, bend the knees, push the hips back, keep the neck neutral, completely neutral, not there, there's no need for it, unless you've got a weak upper back and you just can't keep those shoulders back. Only then can you start by looking here to avoid that. But eventually you need to create the strength and the mind-muscle connection to work on this, and you can just keep your neck neutral the whole time. Now I'm looking there, now I'm looking there, there. Okay, bottom of my back swing, I pull out, and pull out happens with the power from the legs, because my torso comes upright, my arms are a rope, and they're just pulling the weight out. The power phase happens from here to here, very short, boom, explode, and then direct forward. This is a pretty good height right here. About shoulder height, chest height. Okay, you don't want to go higher. Now, you can direct the weight forward, or you can direct the weight up as well. You can also swing with the elbows bent a bit. That's what I do, because I activate my lats a lot. What you don't want is to actively pull it in with your elbow flexors. You don't want to do that. Here is where the work happens, right here. Now, if you're doing a hardstyle swing, then the requirement is straight arms, as straight as possible. There can be a little bit of a bend, but straight arms. If you're doing a hardstyle, then it's also in, out. In the power phase, right here, is where the out happens. Press that air out. Really rigid at the top. So, if you want to learn hardstyle, just know that the movement is great. It's great to learn, and everything about hardstyle is great to learn. But there's a lot that comes with it that you need to learn straight away as well. Okay, so the breathing pattern, how to stay rigid here, and a lot more. So it's a lot easier to just focus on the pattern first, what you want to do, which could be a hip hinge or a squat pattern. Now let's have a quick look at the difference between a hip hinge and a squat pattern. I'll do 2 hip hinge, then I do more of a squat pattern, and then I accentuate that squat pattern on the last 2 reps. So here we go. Rewind, put it in slow-mo if you couldn't see it, okay? So, the hip hinge was vertical, shins vertical, knees are moving, hips are moving back. The squat pattern is where the ankles are involved. Now, the knees drop forward. So you're basically using 3 joints instead of 2 joints. Now, it's great because joints are moved by muscles. So the more joints you involve, the more muscles actively, dynamically, you involve in your movement. So if you want your cardio up, then go for more of a squat movement. That is my opinion always. Like right here, you're loading your quads, you're loading your calves, and you got 3 joints. And trust me, your cardio goes up a lot faster, your heart rate goes up a lot faster because you're recruiting a lot more muscle. Of course, with the hip hinge, you're also recruiting your calves, but isometrically. Now, another thing that's great about more of a squat movement is your back, your torso stays more upright. So here is the squat movement. I'm looking ahead. Here's the hinge movement. They're both great. So if you want to work more on your glutes and more on your posterior chain here, then go for the hip hinge. If you want to work more the front and maybe you've got problems with your lower back, then the squat pattern is a lot easier. Okay, so for beginners, the squat movement is a lot easier. Now, there's always been this weird thing where people said, oh, you can't squat a swing. Yes, you can, absolutely. In fact, Pavel started with a squat movement for the swing. And they progressed from there and stuck with it, okay? But you should look at the whole thing. A swing is the family, there's the variations. Each variation reaches a different goal. You need to know your goals. What are you working for? What do you want from your swing? Okay. Before the video becomes too long, I'm just going to rewind again, and you can still read the article as well online. There's a whole lot more that I could say about the swing, like literally a whole book and a whole course is what I've written called Master the Kettlebell Swing. But back to this video, this is about beginners. So first, learn about the movement, the form and technique. Learn about the variations. Which one are you trying to do so that you can tell people and get the right feedback. Now let's get back to the movement again, and let's have a look at the muscles to activate. I'm going to take my shirt off, not to show what this old body looks like. I'm almost 53, but to show you what the muscles engaged look like. So, we've got the chest here, and we've got the rolled back shoulders, and rolled forward shoulders, rather. And this is what you see in people most of the time. They roll forward, especially at the top of the swing. That can be due to posture, sitting behind the computer a lot, but it's also mostly because of weakness and lack of mind-muscle connection. I'll just pick this up and maybe you can hear me better. It's also due to lack of mind-muscle connection, which is basically the ability to activate the right areas of your body. Now let's have a look. Here, we're not using our upper back. So the objective of a swing is to get a stronger back, to get a stronger upper back, to get a better posture. So to do that, you need to activate it. Let's have a look. So we're swinging here, here's the difference. Now I'm pushing my chest out. Now we're here, rather than here, here. So at the back, now my shoulders are forward. Now I'm engaging my muscles around my scapula, basically pushing it down, depressing, and contracting them together. Adduction. Then we get this. Now lats on. Now most of the time people don't know, like, how do I put my lats on? What you can do is find something to put your hand on. If you don't, then just put your arm here and push down, right here, to the side. If you're on the side here and pressing down, you will feel what it feels like to engage your lat. And you want both of those on at the top, right here. So here's the difference. Right here. So not only are you going to work on those muscles that you're normally not working, you are also improving your posture. You are creating strength as you're doing this, and you are engaging with your muscles that you normally don't engage with. Now that is going to bring you to the next level. Okay, so let's look at this. At the top, down, then chest on, chest out, drop, 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 weight, hinge, insert, looking there, then squeeze the glutes, pull the weight out, press into the ground like you want to do a squat jump. That is what you're doing here, but you don't want your feet to ever leave the ground. So not your heels and not your toes. They should not leave the ground. Now, there's a lot more that I could say. Like I said, I could go on for hours. There are things about grip, injury prevention. Let's see, let's just cover the most common injury, which is the lower back. Actually, the lower back is what should benefit from the swing. It should benefit and make it stronger and take away any back pain that you have. But it can introduce back pain if you're doing it wrong. And the most common one is following the weight, following it. So wait. As I said in the beginning, drill it all with just body weight. Drill the whole pattern with just body weight. You're just ingraining it in your brain, and then you're repeating it. And it requires hundreds of reps. So if you already start adding weight to it, then it's just going to get worse. So first, feel those muscles working around your scapula, feel your lats working, feel that your chest is pushed out, and all those things. Work on that first. Now, if you got any questions, I'm always open to answering any questions. And if you're wondering why I'm talking so low, it's because there's a lot of echo in this room, which is really annoying. I wish I had a proper studio. So I'm just keeping my voice down and not being too enthusiastic either, because there's so much echo here. I hope I can reduce it in my editing. Now, come and join me on Kettlebell Monster. If you post in Connect with a free account, you can just post your video of a swing, and I can pull it into the coach's desk, which is a whole tool where we can look at the video and say, you're making this mistake, and you're doing great here and great there. Now, resubmit or ask your questions. Then you can resubmit, and it's linked to the same video, to the same first review. And then you can tick off what you fixed and worked on. So this is great to keep track of what you need to work on, but it's also great because over time you can see these videos improve. You can see your swing improve. Everything is there. I explain how to film and get it right, what to do and what not to do. It's really worth checking out. Just type in kettlebell.monster, create your free account, go to connect, and post your video there. There is a option for form feedback. And then at the end, tick admin review, and I will have a look at it.